We return to Future's End to see Starling irate because Rain blabbed what she'd found to someone else, and now word is getting around on it. Like most cartoon villains, he immediately decides to liquidate her, using the flimsy justification of her being a security risk. Which of course she is, because the information is now out there. So you do realize that killing her wouldn't accomplish anything, right? The information is out there. You don't retroactively stop her from saying it by killing her now. And you do also know that if you deny something and then the person who said it suddenly vanishes, that doesn't make everyone say, oh, obviously she must be full of shit. That creates what's called suspicion. You know, for a man who became master of a technological empire, you're an idiot. So we cut to Tom and Tuvok, who show up at the observatory in a truck they've stolen by taking it for a test drive. Besides the fact that finding a cab, which Tuvok even says they should have done, would have probably been faster, prevented them from possibly being lost, and drawing unwanted attention towards the stolen vehicle, usually you have someone ride with you when you're taking a test drive to prevent exactly this thing from happening. Well, now that I think about it, that could have been a fun scene to have in there. Master Pilot Tom Paris trying to test drive and banging the car into shit, and the salesman slowly losing it, and then it finishes up with a finely timed Vulcan nerve pinch or something. Of course, it makes sense and would be entertaining, so obviously we can't have that. So they go into the lab and check things out, but Rain comes back to remind us how much we hate her. Having seen the rural people in Caretaker, I've no doubt she's an equally exaggerated stereotype of Californians. And believe me, we'll get more of that kind of crap before this episode is out, stereotyping people based on their region. And I will say that Sarah Silverman is not actually bad at this. The character is written to annoy the living hell out of you, and she does that quite well. She and Tom talk for a bit while Tuvok messes up her computer, allowing double entendre ping-pong.
Your curves don't look so great.
Excuse me? Who are you people, and what is that thing in your pants?
I beg your pardon.
I'm sorry, but the evil henchmen do not approve of these double entendres, so he vaporizes the truck in his attempt to take out Rain. They escape into her VW microbus, complete with gaudy interior, catching and dumping Tuvok in the back, no doubt on her pile of 10 pounds of Mary Jane, bags of Sun Chips, and mounds of crash test dummies, Presidents of the United States, and Spin Doctors CDs. So, let's see. Janeway and Chakotay's primary lead is a crazed homeless man who lists nose-picking as both his occupation and religion. Tom and Tuvok are escaping in a 30-year-old potmobile. Surely Harry must be doing better now, right? No. He's down to enlisting Neelix and Kess and watching Earth broadcast to see if anything might have detected them. Look at this, 3 billion channels, and there's nothing on!
I can't imagine just watching the story and not being a part of it.
Well, that's ironic, considering basically your role in this show is to watch the story and not be part of it, except to say, I can't do that, Captain, and then cringe knowing Janeway's going to throw something at you. Besides which, aren't you familiar with books? I mean, I know that you're not watching the book, but surely reading the story and watching the story are basically the same kind of thing, right, Harry? Although knowing, the Federation here or something, they probably teach you with non-fiction or something to make it pure. See Dick and Jane. See Dick and Jane perform a level 2 diagnostic on the power relay. First step for Dick. But of course you know why it's there. It's to remind us it's the future. Same with Chakotay and Janeway letting themselves into Starling's office, confused by the keyboard and icons, pulling out Spock's line of stone knives and bearskins. Of course, there's a bit of a difference between, I have to use this primitive computer, and I have to build a working computer out of the contents of my ass. Tom and Tuvok are the only ones who aren't doing this, and that's just because they're stuck with Rain, and she's busy being insufferable. She demands answers, so Tom figures out a foolproof plan. They're secret agents.
The UFO, what is it?
It's a Soviet spy satellite. Part of a massive KGB operation we're trying to stop it.
Soviet? The USSR broke up 5 years ago. The KGB doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, they're not an expansionist, propaganda-spewing, corrupt communist nation anymore. They're an expansionist, propaganda-spewing, corrupt capitalist nation. Booyah! We won that war! And of course, they're also the #1 enemy of the scissoring seismologist. Well, if Moose and Squirrel here are going to thwart the Soviets, they'll need to contact their friends for help, but their comm badges were fried by the weapon blast because it's powered by plot rays. Janeway and Chakotay can still contact Voyager, though, and they have a lot to say. Starling used the technology of the time ship to jumpstart the computer revolution. If he hadn't done that, who knows how history could be different. We could be in the midst of some kind of global war between genetic supermen at this very moment.
Time travel. Since my first day on the job as a Starfleet captain, I swore I'd never let myself get caught in one of these godforsaken paradoxes. The future is the past is the future. It all gives me a headache.
How could we have been seeing a reflection of something we hadn't even done yet? Am I making any sense here?
No.
Well, the good news is they found the time ship. The bad news is Starling's found them, and his lackey has a phaser on them. So they try to explain about the disaster, but Harry interrupts, and soon Starling is ready to gun down Janeway and Chakotay.
We can try an emergency transport from a lower orbit.
That's exactly what the captain ordered us not to do. We'd be risking detection.
Harry, we can't worry about that now. Their lives are in danger.
And if somebody sees a starship flying through the clouds?
The captain put you in charge. It is your decision.
So do what I tell you! Starling leaps into action. Luckily, all of his commands are controlled by Asja, so he quickly has the situation under control. Except for them beaming out, of course. They try to get the time ship too, but they underestimate the power of Asja, Starling not only gets it back, but also 20% of the memory, and he's stolen the Doctor. Wow, this guy rules the home row. How the hell did you do that? Well, Captain, you may have phasers, photon torpedoes, warp drive, heuristic processors, but I have Claris works. Also, the time ship's very existence must have warped time because somehow an hour has passed between the time Janeway was beamed up and now. Meaning she stopped and baked a lasagna on the way to the bridge, or they just wanted to get this final image in before the end of the episode, no matter how little sense it makes. Amateur video of Voyager flying over L.A. From that, we move on to part 2. Now, I'll admit I was not kind of part 1, but I'll also admit that I had a little bit of fun with it in a turn-off-your-brain kind of way. Could have been better, but it wasn't actually bad. But the story is really let down by part 2. You see, Future's End was supposed to be 3 parts, not 2. In fact, they were hoping to stretch it out to a 4th one. But there was pushback, so they wound up going with 2 parts, and so 2 and 3 were both compressed into a single episode. And it shows. So we start off with Tom trying to fix the comm badge with a car radio. A completely implausible idea that a microbus would have a working radio. While he works on that, we get Rain's science backstory, because as you know, nobody ever goes into a scientific field because it's interesting. They always have to be inspired in their childhood in order to take it up. It's that way with all careers, I'm sure. I'm a CPA because I found early on a love of perfectly balanced sums. No wonder the aliens are so one-dimensional. The writers can't even comprehend human beings. If Rain were an alien, her species would have everything focused on astrological worship. Now, you won't believe this, but Tom says somehow they cannot contact Voyager with a 30-year-old car radio. I'll admit I was just waiting for it to work like all their silly plans often do. Though it would have been funny if Tom accidentally used it to make contact with Rush Limbaugh. On Voyager, we see that not only has Starling downloaded 20% of Voyager's computer memory, but it apparently wipes it out in the process, because as everyone knows, downloading also takes the files away. That's why the government cracks down on torrenting so hard. They're making all the music and movies vanish. He also completely took the Doctor away, because obviously there's no emergency backup for the EMH, don't be stupid.
Tuvok and Paris are still missing somewhere in Los Angeles.
Yes, we could try scanning for Vulcan life signs, but that would actually work, so screw that. Of course, the sensors could be having problems of some kind too. They've got all these catastrophic problems. But since the crew is happy to sit around and tell each other all the stuff they already know, that probably would have been mentioned. To make matters worse, it seems their little capture on amateur video, while being dismissed as a hoax by most people, has the Air Force on high alert and ready to intercept Voyager if they come in again. So far, they seem to be doing even worse than Chekhov and Uhura wandering around San Francisco looking for nuclear vessels. At least Tuvok's able to get in touch with them thanks to the SETI transmitter, so they can update each other on the Starling problem. Speaking of him, Starling is talking to the Doctor, and shockingly, seems the events of the swarm actually affected the Doctor slightly. But what won't shock you is that Starling can not only project the Doctor into his office, but also has enough programming abilities to torture him for information. Wow. With that kind of hacking ability, you'd think he'd be able to program the Doctor to be helpful. But that's a lot less evil than torturing him, so, no-brainer there. Plus, a physician with medical knowledge centuries more advanced, I think you could probably make a few bucks since you'd now have the cure to, well, everything. But still, it's that or the torture, come on!
For a human to experience what you're going through right now, He'd have to be on fire.
Have I mentioned I'm an evil villain? Because I'm a businessman, so I'm so evil. I'd stroke my cat for you, but I'm allergic. You know I can cure that. Shut up and suffer some more. Well, once again, he's interrupted by Rain. The girl, not the phenomenon, although it's probably seeming like both to him. The plan is to lure him into a trap, which she does with everything short of, please come into our trap. So per her request, Starling shows up in person, along with the Doctor thanks to his mobile emitter. Props to Braga on this one, using this as an opportunity to expand the story opportunities they have with the Doctor, and having it gel with this story is a good puzzle piece that fits in here very well. Seizing the opportunity the story offers and the long-term implications was very smart. And if it turned out to be a mistake or something, hey, they could always break the mobile emitter later on. Win-win. Meanwhile, Torres has whipped up some more interferometrics to make a shuttle look like a small plane, on radar at least, so she and Chakotay can fly in, bantering as they prepare to spring the trap on this evil villain. And you know he's evil because he says,
if your shipmates start any trouble, you'll be hollow dust.
Starling's such a lame villain, even his threats are stupid. It's also not helped that, for some reason, whenever Begley starts trying to sound threatening or sinister, he talks like he just got back from the dentist. Also, showing the brilliance that led to him becoming a rich and sinister threat, he brings along the only lackey that Rain has actually seen. Now, I'm admittedly not a wealthy supervillain, but I think if you're a gazillionaire like Starling is, you could probably afford at least one other henchman for these situations, even like part-time or something, so you don't have to pay health benefits. Anyway, Starling figures it's a trap, but since Rain plays dumb, because if anyone can play dumb, it's Rain, he plays along and takes her to his car, completely blowing the plan for him to go into the microbus. Did they really expect that he'd do that when he'd be arriving in his own car? Probably a very nice car, and probably prefers something without blunt ashes and crushed Cheetos all over the seats? So they're going to have to change this plan to beam him out of his own car. He does not go quietly into the night, though, fidgeting with his futuristic tricorder to try to interfere, while the Doctor does the action hero stuff. And it shows just why Picardo is so damn good. After taking out the driver, the Doctor runs in a way that's not quite goofy, it's just odd. He runs like someone who has never actually had to run before. Eventually they nab Starling with the transporter, but then things take a turn for the disastrous, in more ways than one, which we'll see next week in the final installment of Future's End. All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I'm afraid.